All right, welcome everybody to the pre-launch book party for the 15 Success Traits of Pro Bloggers. Glad you guys are here. We got a bunch of people already in the room and more, I'm sure, coming today. And hopefully you don't get too distracted by the construction happening next door. There is a house being built right next to me. You probably can't hear it, but I can hear it. And we're just going to operate right through it. So I am glad that you guys are here. We're going to hang out for the next hour, and I'm going to share with you what we're going to do, what we're going to cover in the next hour. But this is exciting. This is the pre-launch party. You guys are either part of the university as active members, or I did for this one time invite those of you who are part of our private book launch to be a part of this event. And many of you should have a copy of the book by now, at least the first draft in the manuscript form. And the goal as of right now, I should be getting the actual finished edited version of the book back from the editor on Friday. So I'm going to submit it to Amazon, and then it should be live on the 26th, which is going to be on Thursday. So the goal right now is I'm going to actually provide it completely for free. Thursday, February 26th to Monday, March the 1st. And that's going to be for 5 days. Would love to have your help in promoting that and getting it out there to as many people as possible. And really just trying to help people with having a roadmap. And I'll talk a little bit about kind of the evolution of this project and this book. So let me just share my screen so I can kind of share with you what you can expect today. And by the way, if you're just getting into the room, I see several more people in the room. Glad you guys are here. I do want to answer your questions. So if you've already been reading one of the early editions of the book and you have some questions, I would love to answer those. You can go ahead and put them in right now if you come with some questions. And a little bit later, I'm going to answer some of those questions. So let me show you. 1 second here. I'm going to show you I'm going to show you kind of what we're going to cover today here in just a minute. All right. Moving some of these windows out of the way. All right. So let me back up a second here. Many of you should know by now that we got a new book coming out. It's called The 15 Success Traits of Pro Bloggers. And it follows the roadmap, the blogging success pyramid that I've been working on for a couple of years. And actually, in just a little bit here, I'm going to show you my first original version of the pyramid as I originally thought of it in 2011, and how things have evolved over time to where and what it is today. So here's what we're going to talk about today. If you're like, well, what is this pre-launch book party all about? Well, I had this idea of kind of pulling back the curtains, letting you guys behind the scenes as if you were hanging out with me inside of my home office, and we were just chatting about what it's like to write a book and the process that I'm using, and a little bit of actually diving into the book so that you can learn about these traits in a little bit more depth than the book talks about. Also want to kind of share with you what I'm doing with my book launch strategy. Why am I offering it for free in the first 5 days, and what is my strategy behind the whole thing? And then we're going to talk about your questions as well, and how we can help you, whether it's something you're struggling with blogging, or maybe something you read in the book that you want some more clarity on, or maybe you have questions about how you can help me get the word out. I'd be happy to talk with you about all of that. So that's what we are going to do today. Okay. So now what I want to do first is I want to talk a little bit more about the book and why I decided to write the book, talk a little bit about it and the process, kind of, again, peel back the curtain and share with you the process of my idea, how it came about, all those great things. So let me jump back around here and get my video back on. And so basically the framework for this idea started back in 2011. So this is a long time coming, and I actually want to show you what the first original pyramid looked like. Before I do that, just in case anybody hasn't seen it, this is the framework the finished work of the framework, which is a tool that I like to use to help someone. If someone says, you know, I want to take this message and I have this thing that I'm passionate about. Maybe it's a topic, maybe it's a certain, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. You have this passion and you want to get it out there to a lot more people. And for most of you, you also want to figure out how to turn that into a full-time job, something that you can do from home. And so I began in 2011, began thinking about how could I teach this? I'm a teacher at heart. Many of you know my story. Started as a high school teacher. And so I'm always trying to figure out how to take big, complex, overwhelming things and break them down to its simplest parts. And if we can get it down into simple steps and we can model behaviors of what other people are doing, then we have something to follow. And for me, I wish I would have had a plan like this back when I first started, because it would have made it so much easier had I known what I needed to know ahead of time. And if I would have known, you know, what's the mindset I need to have about this going in, because it's probably not the right, I probably don't have the right mindset. You know, in the beginning, I was probably more critical. I was probably more doubtful. Maybe many of you are like that right now. And so, you know, I didn't have the right mindset. I didn't know what habits I needed to focus on. You know, where do I spend my time? I certainly didn't have any systems in place. I wanted leverage, because leverage sounded like an amazing thing, especially after I first read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I figured out, you know, I don't want to be in the employee quadrant. I wanted to do something on my own. I wanted to be self-employed, but more importantly, I wanted to have leverage to be able to choose the time, my time, the way that I wanted to spend it. And so that's where a lot of this came about, is how can I teach this? And so what you see today didn't happen overnight. It was a process of watching a lot of people, observing, learning, taking my own courses, investing in my own education, trying things out. And so that is the finished product today. And I'll be talking about this framework in a little bit more in just a little bit. But let me show you the first original one. Here's the first original one here. I don't know if you can see this fully. Let me see if I can shrink this down. You can see it a little better. Or I'll just move it up. Perfect. So you can see there's some of the things, you see some similarities here. But there was things that I began to observe over the time that began to help me decide what needed to be included, where, and when. And so this was it back in 2011. You can see, if you're familiar with the blogging success pyramid, the bottom I had commitment, focus, passion, consistency, patience. And some of those words, at least 3 of them, are still present in the new one. And then the next level was keyword, content, links, analysis. Then I had monetization, outsourcing, mailing lists, social community, product creation, and then of course trust and authority is the same, but the rest of them weren't. And they just weren't very coherent. So it took me a few years, but I finally got it to those principles that, for me at least, I think really really matter. And it's the things that if you kind of lean into it and you borrow the success of other people by just doing the things that they're doing, you're going to be much better off. And so again, that's where it led to today, which was, you know, a much more cleaner version of the success traits. And what's cool about this is I've shared this with many successful bloggers and gotten great feedback on it. And you know, the one thing that I think is important is there is no one road or one way to success, but there's principles that will always be true. And so there may be certain nuances or certain things that people do that's a little bit different. But for the most part, this is a proven roadmap and strategy. And if I was starting all over again, this is where I would start, right here. And so if I were to peel back the curtains a little bit before I kind of dive in and talk about the book, and actually talk about this in the book, it's important that if you have something that you're passionate about, how could you explain that in a framework? How could you explain that in a simple 1-page or 2-page training tool that you could hand off to other people? And in the book, I actually talk a little bit more about this, but I think it's important that that you figure out how to break down the topic that you have a passion for. How can you break it down using tried and true principles and weave in and breathe in your own perspective? Because the truth is there's nothing new under the sun. We know that. But what is new is you. And you can take these principles that are always true about the passion or the topic that you have and figure out a fresh new way to present them and repackage them so that others can learn from you. And I think it's important not only for your audience, but it's important for you as the blogger, the teacher. I think there's a quote by Albert Einstein that says, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. And that was the journey that I went on by trying to continue to break this down. I would use pieces of paper and I would scratch this out. I have a Moleskine notebook that probably has this pyramid, you know, sketched out and rethought and retooled. I know I've brainstormed it on a whiteboard before. And so that's what I would challenge you to do is how can you take your topic or your passion and put it into a framework? You don't have to use a pyramid. You can use, I give you several examples in the book. You can use 3 concentric circles. You can use just stairs, and each step is another level in your process. You can use a ladder. You can use a triangle. I mean, you can use any kind of shape that you want. In fact, in the book, I encourage you to do a Google image search and just type in the word framework. And you'll be shocked at how many ideas that you can come up with just by viewing them. And so that's where it started. This whole process started for me. And then this is what's really cool. Everything flows from this. Later in the Create Habit chapter in the book, I talk about creating your expert product wheel. And that is where you create 4 or 5 different income streams, but they all come from this one framework that you create. And so once I got this framework nailed down, what I did is I went to 99 Designs and I actually put in a project and had a bunch of designers submit ideas. And it took a couple of weeks, but I finally got to this design because I think it fits my brand, kind of the 50s retro theme the best. And so this fit my brand. And once I got that settled, I began to use this framework as an email incentive, an easy, quick kind of giveaway. But this is just the beginning. because there's so much more to this than what you just see on this one page. And let me share this with you. And I think this would be interesting for you because, again, I'm kind of pulling back the curtain and sharing with you what I'm doing, because you can feel free to model and do the exact same thing. And so what I'm doing with this is this one-page framework becomes the foundation of everything that is that I'm doing moving forward. So the book is just a further explanation of this framework. In fact, if you've already kind of dove into the chapter, into the book, you've seen that the different blocks that you see on this framework are the different chapters inside the book. So, and let me actually, while we're talking about the book, let me show you. And again, if you guys are just here, I see several more people came in the room. Today we're just hanging out. I'm just kind of sharing with you as if you were sitting in the room with me, what I'm doing with my book and my strategy for creating multiple streams of income from actually putting this framework together. And so again, if you guys come and you have questions, I am going to answer questions here in just a little bit. So feel free to ask them in the chat. And I already have got some questions that are coming in. So keep those questions coming in here. All right. So once you kind of get your framework set, then next is let's write a book. And the easiest way to do that is to actually to write a Kindle book, because something you can self-publish. It's something you can do fairly quickly. And I like to use a tool called Scrivener. And I'm going to show you my project right now, how I have it broken down. So you should see my Scrivener project. And we go to the top of this page here. And so I had the actually had the exact same designer on 99 Designs create the book cover so that I could have the same similar feel and brand with my framework. And so what I did pretty simply, if you can see some of this, is the chapters are broken down by the different traits. And so I've got success trait number 1 and then number 2. And I just created these inside of Scrivener. And then some of them I use my this document notes section over here to just jot down ideas, topical ideas for the chapter. And I kind of jumped around and wrote the book in places where I felt like I was ready to talk about them. And so this easily broke out into obviously 15 chapters with the 15 traits, but I had some sections in between about the different tiers in the blogging success pyramid, and then some closing chapters. I think it ended up being about 21 chapters. And then in total, it ended up being almost 42,000 words total. And honestly, there were times where I felt like I could continue to write and add more. And who knows, maybe one day I'll revise this and add some more to it. But, you know, you don't have to write 42,000 words. It's perfectly fine for you to write what I call is like a manifesto that works off of your framework. And maybe it's 10,000 words. 10,000 words, 10 to 15,000 words is common for like a $3 Kindle book. And so my Kindle book is probably going to be more like $8 since it is more like a real book. And I'm also going to be having a paperback version. I've already had people email me today, in fact, and say, hey, are you going to do a paperback version? Because I'm just not a Kindle book kind of reader. And I know that's true. Some people want the physical book in their hand so they can highlight and mark and make notes and reference back to it. And yes, there will be a paperback version that's going to be available here in the next few weeks once we get the Kindle book going here. So this process took me a couple of months, but if you were writing a book yourself, and you're expanding on your framework and you're looking at, 10 to 15,000 words, it's probably going to take you 30 days, maybe 60 at the most. And so once you begin to build out this book, then of course what I've been using is I went and posted a free project on Elance and had a bunch of people bid on the project, picked one that I felt like was one of the better ones on Elance and had her edit my book. And so that's where I am today. Now, here's the cool thing, kind of continuing on this theme. So I've got, moving forward, I'm obviously going to have the book that people can purchase, and I can earn income from the book. But here's the real reason why I want to offer it for free, and that is because I offer it for free for the first 5 days, is because I see this as a lead generator. I see this as introducing people into a process where there's much more going on in the back end. In fact, if you haven't gotten this far in the book, I can probably show it to you right now. There's a section on the book where I talk about habits, and I talk about something called the hourglass funnel. And you can see a picture right here. And the hourglass funnel is taking the 4 keystone habits of pro bloggers and kind of breaking them down into a visual reference so that it makes sense. And so I won't go into depth right now because I don't want to get off topic, but the connect that you see at the top is when you connect with other fans, followers, or I would say even like influencers who can help to let people know about what you're up to. And so as that process happens, more people find out about the book. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a way to capture their email addresses, because at the beginning of the book, throughout the book, and at the end of the book, I'm going to encourage them to get the framework, get a PDF version of the framework along with some extra training videos. And by doing that, they're going to get in my process for possible mentoring from me, which can also lead to people joining the university. The new university that's coming out is also going to be a part or follow the framework, which I can show you that in just a little bit. And so, in other words, all this kind of works together. And so the create in this situation was me creating the book and then capturing email addresses, which leads to the compile, which is at the very bottom, the compile habit, which is creating courses that people can purchase. And which is, of course, my university along with other things. And so I want to kind of show you that. If you have questions about that, or if I didn't explain it well enough, you can feel free to ask me some follow-up questions about that. The easiest way to show you, and I'm kind of jumping in and out of the book a little bit, but I want to share with you my strategy and what I'm doing so that you could replicate it and do this yourself if you choose to. Under chapter 10, actually it's going to be chapter 12, under the compile chapter, which is about packaging your knowledge and perspective into products and services. If you scroll down, I actually share with you how to create your expert product wheel in 12 months. If I go to the very bottom here, it's going to show the outline for you. So this is kind of what I've been sharing with you, because I've had a lot of people say, John, one of the cool things about either being a part of the university or being a part of this private book launch is getting to know what you're doing behind the scenes, like getting a peek behind the curtain, find out what you're doing so that I can learn what you're doing and replicate, do the same thing. And so this process that I'm teaching in the book is exactly the process I'm following right now. So we already talked about number 1, which is to create the framework that helps you teach your passion. That was the pyramid in my case. Number 2, and this is what I'm launching right now, is the Kindle book manifesto that builds on the framework. So it kind of explains the what. So the framework shows the what, the Kindle book explains the what, and then I'm going to jump down just a little bit. I'll come back to the others. Then create an online course or membership site that explains the how. So the what, some of you can take the what and run with it because you're already familiar, you already know what you need to do. You're a little bit more experienced. Others of you, you still want to learn the how, very step by step. And if you've been a part of the university, then you know that that is how we structure all of our videos, all of our training. From the very beginning, we always said that whether you are 8 years old or 80, we want you to be able to follow our process. And I think that's always been something that has been important to us. And so the online course is the Blogging Your Passion University. So let me show you. And hopefully this is helpful for you guys. I'm just kind of just talking about what I'm doing so that you can use it yourself. Let me grab. I'm going to show you inside of what the new Blogging Your Passion University looks like, so you can kind of connect the dots with all this. All right. And again, if you're just getting here, or we're just hanging out, we're talking as if we were sitting right here in this office, and I was just sharing with you what I'm doing behind the scenes on this book launch, as well as where I'm headed over the next several months. And so let me show you this part of it. So here's the actual online course. And so this is going to be this new 2.0 version of Blogging Your Passion University is going to be rolling out here within the next month. And it's totally retooled. It's a simpler format. It's redesigned. And the goal is to help you dive deeper into the book. So again, you've got the framework to help you remember the principles. You have the book, which allows you to learn the what in a little bit more in depth. And then the course or the online university helps you really understand the how through videos, through further explanation. So if we were to jump into this 101 course, you can see right here that this 101 course is actually the bottom tier of the pyramid. Talking about passion and confidence and patience, resilience and consistency. And then if we click on Get Started, it's going to take us to our first block from the book, which is passion. And here's the extra lessons that help you. First of all, there's lesson 1 about the myth of I'll just follow the money, which we talk about in the book. Lesson 2 is a video training on how to discover your passion. Lesson 3 is how to narrow down your many passions in a video. And lesson 4 is how to pick the right domain name. And so this all falls underneath of passion. And then as you dive into the other videos, you get into the same thing, confidence, and it just continues to progress from there. And if you were to get into like how to discover your passion, that's where you get further into a video, description, lessons, some downloads, and so on. So I want to just show you how all of this kind of merges and fits together. All right, back to the Scrivener file, if I can find it here. All right. There it is. All right, so I explained number 1, number 2, I skipped to number 5. If I jump back up to number 3, regardless of what your passion is, you can create a coaching page, a mentoring page. It doesn't matter if you talk about organic gardening, losing weight, financial getting out of debt, financial coaching, life coaching, career coaching. And they're whatever your passion is, you can probably put up a coaching page and receive income from people who want to spend time with you. And so part of this process that makes it real easy for me is when I do a lot of my mentoring and coaching, I use the framework and I teach it to them. So if someone tells me I'm completely overwhelmed, I don't know where to spend my time, to help me know where to spend my time, I teach them and help build into them the 4 keystone habits, which is the second tier on the blog. And so a lot of my mentoring and coaching is helping them individualize the framework, the original framework. Number 4 is create a speaking page on your blog with topics from the framework. So what's cool about creating that framework is now you have a bunch of topics you could talk about. For me, I probably have 6 different type of keynotes I could do from my framework. I could teach just on the mindset that you need to have as a pro blogger. In fact, when I spoke before Christmas, I spoke at the Podcast Florida event, and my keynote was on the 5 things podcasters should stop saying and what to say instead. And that was the 5 myths and the 5 mindsets, which is the bottom of the pyramid. And then what's cool about that, for those of you that have an interest in getting out and speaking or interacting with a workshop or things like that, is that you can have your book, your manifesto, you can get it physical copies of it through Amazon, and have those as an easy sell at your book table or things like that when you get a chance to go out and speak or interact or go to a conference. So like I said, I've got 5 or 6 different talks that I could do from that one framework. And so that's where I'm going. And hopefully that was helpful to you. I just wanted to kind of explain where I'm headed, what I'm trying to do. And so you can see the framework is the very center of everything. And then the book is the business card. It is the lead generator. And sure, it has an opportunity to produce income, and I'm sure that it will, but it's not the end of it. It's the beginning of the process, because I want it to lead to mentoring. I want it to lead to adding more people into the university. I want to lead to potential speaking opportunities, and so on and so forth. And so if you have a question about that process, I'd love to hear it. Go ahead and put that in the chat. And we'll continue on, and I'll circle back around if you guys have some questions. Rick said, yes, this is helpful. Several of you are saying hello. And my wife is even watching, and she sent me several private messages. And it's her birthday today, so happy birthday to Charity. And okay, looks like I answered some of the questions that already come in. I did answer those. So here's what I want to do right now. And we got a good group of people in here right now, so I'm glad you guys are here. I want to throw up a quick poll because I want to talk about the book for a little bit. In your process of trying to get your passion out there, what is it that you struggle with the most? So I'm going to start this poll. And here's the question. What do you struggle with the most? And here's your choices. Is it mindset, meaning, all these things swirling around in your head that's really stopping you because you have doubts or fears, or maybe you have the fear of not being good enough. Maybe I was doing a coaching call yesterday with an individual, and that person was really struggling with what many people call the imposter syndrome. We have this fear of being found out, that we don't have our act together, and that all of a sudden we're going to lose all of our credibility. It's a thing that a lot of people battle. So maybe it's mindset for you. Maybe it's habits. Maybe it's like, when you finally get some time to work on your blog, you don't know where to spend your time. And sometimes we can fall in love with learning and not taking action. And sometimes it's because we don't know where to spend our time. Or is it systems? Maybe for you, it's you need a track to run on. You need help with a repeatable process that you can follow, whether that has to do with writing blog posts or creating a podcast or anything. You need, some more systems, or maybe it's leverage. Maybe for you, you really need some help there. Or maybe you're like, Jonathan, I need all of this. Well, don't be discouraged by that. Which one do you need the most? So I'm going to give you a few more seconds. Then I'm going to hit the end poll option. I'm going to see what you guys say about this. So which one you struggle with the most? The mindset, habits, systems, or leverage? All right. And so here's how it was broken down. 57% of you said habits. 14% said mindset. And 29% said systems. So interesting. So habits was number one. Systems was number two. And mindset was number three. So let's jump in and talk about the habits for just a little bit. And I'll jump back into the book. By the way, if you guys have a copy of the book, obviously you have it in PDF form. Pull it up right now. You can follow along with me, and let's just spend a few moments talking about that, since over half of you here, almost 60% of you watching right now, really struggle the most with your habits. All right. So in the book, habits falls under chapter number 9. Now, depending on what version you have, the original version, I had 2 chapter 4s. So if so, you want to find the chapter that is about the 4 keystone habits. The 4 keystone habits of pro bloggers. And so anytime I do any mentoring, and people say I'm struggling with where to spend my time, I tell them and I show them, and we talk about how to integrate these 4 habits into what they do. Because here's the truth. If you were to look at my week, my work week, I spend 90 to 95% of my time in one of these 4 buckets. And so let me explain these to you real quick. And you can write these down, and I can maybe help for you to define them a little bit more in more depth. So the first one's called the create habit. And the way I've defined it is to use text, audio, or video to get your message out to the masses. So that's the whole genius behind the blogging model or podcasting model or video blogging model. Either one of these 3 apply. Is that we create value up front. It's kind of a given. And whenever I hear people say, oh man, I feel like I'm just giving away so much for free. Yeah, that's kind of the point. I mean, if you're not ready or willing to outgive what you're going to get, then you're never going to add the value you need to add. You have to add value first. When you add value first, everything else begins to work. And so don't hold back. Put it out there and put out that value. And for me, that comes in the form of writing blog posts. That comes in the form of recording a podcast. That comes in the form of creating video or doing a webinar, even like we're doing right now. That doesn't mean that you have to do all of them. In fact, I encourage you to pick one and be consistent with it first. But the create habit is an essential part of it. It is content marketing. You see, we are in a different place today than we were even 10 or 15 years ago on the internet. 10 to 15 years ago, what you got was a lot of sales pages. And with that sales pages was a lot of noisy marketing in your inbox. Sometimes it was a lot of noisy ads. And so it was all about attention marketing. How could we how could we cause a stir and attention on our sales page so that people will be hyped up enough to buy what we have? And usually when you got on the other side of that thing, you were kind of disappointed. It seemed more exciting before you purchased it than after. And so that's the way it was for a lot of people. I know that's the way it was for me. Excuse me. But what we have today is different. It's a teaching and serving marketing. I call it teach and serve marketing. And if you can go out there and I love this phrase, out teach the competition, you'll set yourself apart because you're giving a lot of value up front. And that content marketing will come back and it will repay you. So for me, the create habit's very important. It is creating the text, audio, or video. It's free content that I'm putting out there to attract people to my message and what I'm doing. The next is the capture habit. The capture habit is the artful exchange of value for email addresses. If you have been around at all or purchased any kind of programs or done any kind of learning in the online business space, you know how important capturing email addresses is. It's very important. And I actually go into more strategies in the book, so I won't go and kind of bore you with all that right now. But if there is one factor, now this is a big statement, if there is one key factor I look at on a regular basis, it's how many people am I adding to my email list. Notice I did not say how many people are visiting my blog. I actually don't care if my blogging stats or my visits are going down if my capture rate's going up, because the one stat that matters to me is the capture habit, and that is how many subscribers am I getting on a regular basis. And so I look at that. That's the number that I really pay attention to, because it's the energy and life of my business and everything I do. And then there's the compile habit, which is all about packaging your knowledge and perspective into products and services. And that compile habit is the stuff that you create that you're actually going to charge for. So that is that's the book, that's the course, that is the coaching, that is getting a speaking page up. Anything that helps you to package your knowledge and perspective into products and services. And then finally, the last one is the connect habit. That's building community with other passionate influencers. And so for me, if you want, well, Jonathan, how do you use that in your work week? What I typically do is I start the beginning of my week really focused on the first one, the create. Whatever blog post or podcast that I want to get done that week, I start with that first. Once I get those done, then I get to move on to my compile, which I can begin to record videos for courses or writing my book or whatever it is that's something that's income producing for me. And then the capture and the connect, I do those kind of later in the day for me. Now, I know some of you are kind of working on a side hustle and you're doing things, you got a day job during the day, and later on under this section, I actually share with you how to do that even while you're working full time. But that's where I spend the majority of my week. And like I said before, I think a great explanation is this hourglass funnel that I talk about, because the capture is, I want you to think about this hourglass funnel as traffic. Okay, so the connect habit, which is connecting with other influencers or other fans, people who are following you, as they introduce people to you, people begin to read your information, which is the create habit, or to listen to your podcast, which is the create. And the goal, the whole entire goal of creating the blog post and the podcast and the videos is to get them on your email list. Because once people get on the email list, now I have a way of staying in touch with them, building a relationship with them, and introducing them to my products and my services, which is the compile habit. So that's how all four of them work together. So if you got any questions, or I'd love to get feedback. Does that make sense? Is that helpful? Is that something that for you, maybe you've never heard it explained that way, and maybe it's starting to kind of come together and make sense for you? All right, got some questions here. Darren says, is this going to be available as a recording? Yes, it is being recorded. Lois said that the poll ended before you finished explaining. Sorry about that. I tried to wait, Lois, but there is about a 30-second delay between the video that you guys are getting and when I'm actually saying it. So when I hit the button, it probably was too soon. Diane says, you've done a great job outlining the whole process of blogging. It would help me to have a list of all the things that are coming in the process, things I'll have to do in this process. The in-depth explanation is in the videos. The list would be a pre-warning, no surprises after one step, being hit with another biggie like incorporating just a word list of what's coming, less panic. Thanks again. Yep, I agree, Diane. Rick says, I like how you've modified pre-existing content. How much effort did you put into updating the content to better fit the framework? I did put, if you're talking about, Rick, the blogging your passion content, I'm assuming. And yeah, I had to work at that. I mean, really kind of brainstorm it out, put it out on a whiteboard, and really kind of think through it to make sure that it made sense and that it fit into what I was doing there. So hopefully that's what you're talking about. Trip says, I already have some speaking opportunities, but they're more in a pastoral role. How can that be connected more to my blog writing? Well, Trip, I'd say first of all, having a speaking page up and actually explaining some of the different topics that you get asked about to talk about. I think that's obviously one. Another way, Trip, is to actually do some of your own through webinars, much like I'm doing right now. I mean, this is more of a hangout than it is a webinar, but webinars give me an opportunity to speak all the time with people, and it's helpful to do on a regular basis. And you don't have to have a lot of people to make it successful. Let me just share this with you, because I was mentoring someone, and they were saying that they only had 40 people on their email list. And I stopped them and I said, well, I want you to reframe that and think about that differently, because I've heard that so many times. People say, well, I only have 300 on my email list, or I only have 40 on my email list. Well, the way that I reframed it to her is I said, what if those 40 people were in a room with pen and paper in hand, and you had the opportunity to teach them about that thing you're passionate about? I said, suddenly those 40 people take on a whole new light. So never discount your list, no matter what size it is. So I just want to encourage you to that. It's important for you to have that kind of perspective. All right. Darren says, love version 1.0 of BYPU. So interesting what version 2.0 will be like. Yeah, that's going to be coming up in the next month. Let's see. Mary Lou says, for list building, do you recommend offering a telesales or webinar at the same time as offering a free Kindle book, or to make those at two different times? I'm trying to think how I would do it. What I would do, Mary Lou, is I love doing webinars. What I usually do is with the book, my goal would be to have something that inside of the book makes them want to join the email list because it's extra video training. They get extra bonuses. And so that would be something that I wouldn't want to have a date on it. I want it to be evergreen so that it's constantly adding people to my list. Then from there, Mary Lou, what I would do is reach out to that list on a regular basis about a webinar. And I do that. I love webinars. I do one just about every single month for one of my two blogs, a free one. And then I do a live fast track class, which is what today is like for Blogging Your Passion University members, something new and fresh. And so those are an important strategy for me. All right, let's see here. Matthew says, how do you determine what you should charge for and what to give for free? It's a great question. And here's how I see this, Matthew. When you provide something for free, it's usually in bite-sized chunks. So a blog post is a bite-sized chunk. A podcast is a bite-sized chunk. Even a webinar to some degree, because you don't want to overwhelm people, is a little bit bigger of a bite size, but it's a bite-sized chunk. And so if those are bite-sized chunks over 6 months, 9 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, and your paid for products is a more organized way to do it, then that is what you charge for. You should always charge for your time and make sure it's worth your time. So any kind of mentoring that you're doing, things there. A lot of the books you read today are a collection of former blog posts. I would say this book that's coming out, if I had to guess, it's probably, I would say 40% of it is blog post. And from that, I actually went back and kind of retooled it, updated it, put it in where it made sense. But people pay for convenience. And so if you package stuff in a new, fresh way, that packaging is so important. Same thing with the, a lot of the videos and things like that. Now, like my Blogging Your Passion University videos, those aren't available without paying for them. But there may be a few of them that were in a blog post form at one time, but they're in a more structured way. Here's the way that I look at it. And I'm just sharing with you some ideas, thoughts off the top of my head. Whenever someone pays for something, what they want is obviously they want value first, but what they want more than anything is transformation. And so if your course, your book, your audio program can help take someone with step 1, step 2, step 3 over a transformation where they get to the next level, they accomplish something, they become successful at something, they go from something that was a vision to something they've actually accomplished. People are looking for transformation. So what do you charge for? You charge for a transformation. Now, what your free stuff is kind of mini transformations, and the stuff that you charge for are the bigger transformations that people want. So hope that makes sense. Darren says, one of the things I'm working on is who my reader is, also known as an avatar. Do you have any suggestions on writing to your avatar? Yeah, Darren, I think it's helpful to get your avatar in your own mind, who it is that you're writing to. I think you don't have to get to the point where you say Susie has 2.5 children, where it's, where you've gotten so detailed that it boxes you in. For me, it goes back to the transformation part. Like, for blogging your passion, I know I've got people who, for the most part, most of them are overwhelmed with blogging, and they need a broken down, simple process to follow. And they need training videos that are within 5 to 10 minutes long that help them accomplish tasks that help them build upon another. Like I said a little bit earlier, we wanted people to follow us in our university if they were age 8 or 80. And so in my mind, I am more or less looking at transformation, again, like I was just talking about. What people want more than anything is a transformation. I did the same thing with like my Evernote course. I took, okay, who's my audience? My audience is creative professionals who don't like being boxed into a super defined process when it comes to getting things done. And then how can I help them to get things done using Evernote? So again, it was about a transformation. Pierre says, Jonathan, sorry, I missed the party. Will there be a replay? Yep, absolutely. I'll send out the link for the replay. Cool. All right. Well, we're pretty much coming up on an hour here. So I don't know if you have any other questions. Let me check my email, make sure I didn't get any that way. Sometimes people will reply and ask a question. Let me check it out over on Facebook. Looks like we're good there. Okay, so let's talk just for the last couple of minutes here on kind of where things are headed over the next couple of days. So for those of you, if you're not already a part of the private Facebook group, first of all, send me an email and I'll send you a link. Inside the private Facebook group that we have, the private Facebook launch group for this book, we've already added some training videos. I've put a full manuscript of this book there. We have much more in the days ahead that I'm going to be adding in there to help you guys. But I would say if you haven't got in there, send me an email. Just use jonathan@bloggingyourpassion.com and send me an email, and I'll send you the link that you can access and get a part of this private group. And then what I would love for you guys to do is, first of all, when the book goes live on Amazon, is even though you've got a PDF version, go ahead and get access or download the actual Kindle version of it. That's going to help me get more people to be able to view it and see it, because Amazon's going to be sharing it more. If more people have downloaded, it goes up. It makes it more visible to people when more people download it. And then give me a review. I'd love to hear your thoughts, insights, feedback, help, the places where maybe it helped you. And then I've had several of you email me about guest posting on your blog. And so I'm working through that as we speak, if that's something you'd like for me to do. Again, shoot me an email at jonathan@bloggingyourpassion.com. If you have a podcast, I would love to be able to talk about pieces of this book on a podcast and try to add more value to people. If you know somebody who has a podcast, reach out to me, give me an introduction to them, and I would love to be able to connect with them and try to get this message out there about the book. And again, it's going to be live. Hopefully, the goal is for it to be live Thursday, February 26th to March the 1st, which is a Monday. So that's the process. That's what we're going to be doing, and it should be a lot of fun. So again, I hope this is helpful. This entire recording, I'm going to post it in the private Facebook group. I'm also going to post it inside of Blogging Your Passion University. Hopefully you got a little bit of insight into where I'm headed, what I'm doing with my launch, little bit pieces of more additional information with the book. If you haven't had a chance to read it, I hope that you will spend some time reading it and learning from it. And then if you just have any questions in general, shoot me an email. I'd be happy to connect with you personally. So I think that's all the questions that I got. Make sure I didn't miss anybody. Looks like I got to everybody. So again, guys, thanks for being here today. I hope this was fun or informative, helpful. Maybe you got some aha moments today. And again, I'll be sharing more of this along the way inside of the private Facebook group for our book launch. So as you being a member of that book launch, you're going to get to learn more and more about what we're doing in the days ahead. So thank you, guys. Looks like you got some more comments. Rick says, I'll definitely give a review when it goes live. This is an excellent framework and book. Thanks, Rick. I appreciate the feedback and appreciate you guys being here today. So with that, I'm going to sign off. Have a great day.